Hello ladies and gentlemen, Gabesty here. This is the Heroic Tank Guide for Galakras, the 5th boss in Siege. And this guide should assist tank-based players in getting through the core mechanics of this fight on Heroic successfully. So let's get started. Now the good news is, from a tank perspective, there's actually no change mechanically on this fight from the normal version. So pretty much all the strategies and methods you used on normal will work here on Heroic. It's just things are obviously much more difficult, much more damaging, all that good stuff. But for the most part, the stuff I talk about here will just be general tips to assist you in the Heroic version, but these would technically all apply to the normal version as well. So the first big consideration for tanking this successfully is your positioning along the ground area. That is, when you're dealing with the NPC waves along the main path, where you're positioned and positioning the NPCs respectively. So the best thing you can do for your entire raid especially, but as a tank as well, is to stay back and avoid the temptation of rushing forward when new waves spawn. The idea here is to allow the NPCs to run toward your group and therefore toward the helpful NPCs that are in the back there by the bridge. As long as they're close enough, those NPCs will engage and assist you quite significantly. The other main thing is to otherwise tank in the sort of front position just ahead of the NPCs where the flame strike is being cast. You can see it cast there. It will help to drop a raid marker once you figure out where that is so that you can just keep repeating that process or use a statue or something like that. But this will, again, assist you in DPS quite significantly. The exception to this is the ranged creatures, which aren't very frequent, but the shamans and the flame slingers, for example, will tend to stay back. For the shamans, just use silence or interrupts and then pull them back to the main stack-up position in the flame strike. The other big consideration is if you are the tank on the ground majority of the time, there are a number of NPCs you have to manage properly. So we'll just talk about these briefly. The first is the Lieutenant Orgrimmar, the snake, which you see here. And she herself doesn't really need to be managed, but the Ebon Stalkers that come with her will do a cleave sort of ground attack that you can see there. It's a purple marker. So pretty standard stuff. Just keep them faced away from the rest of the raid from the melee if possible. Once Orgrimmar goes into 50%, she will do some area of effect bolts, which you can't do anything about. So again, just keep her in the basic flame strike position until she's dead. The other big consideration is the smaller mobs. Most of them you don't have to worry about significantly, with the exception of the proto-drakes, who have another frontal cone attack. So make sure you keep them faced away. They will always come in pairs. And other than that, try to assist by stunning the bone crushers when they use fracture on the NPCs, interrupting the tidal shaman's heals, and then killing the healing tide totems and the flags that are planted by the NPCs down below. So those are your basic roles. Just keep things faced away from the raid, keep them positioned in the flame strike at all times, stay back when they spawn initially because of this, and otherwise help kill the totems or the flags. Now if you're tanking the tower, then again things work just like they do on normal. So you'll go up when it comes time. It depends on whether your group is going up before the Demolisher is killed or after. So you'll need to make sure you recognize which time you're going up. But otherwise, the best thing to do is pull the Lieutenant near one of the edges, kind of near the flame slingers that are on the sides. So you can see here we're pulling the Lieutenant just toward the flame slingers, so cleave and area effect damage hits all of them. And after a moment, the Lieutenant will go to the center and start to do their normal cleave attack. So make sure you dodge that as best you can, just like you would on normal. And stay really close so that it's easier to move out of the cone because of that. Once the NPCs are dead, typically the tower tank will be in charge of staying up top and dealing with the gun while the rest of the raid drops down and helps with the ground. So if that's your assignment, just make sure you stay up there and use the gun to shoot down the drakes as quickly as you can. The faster you kill the drakes, the less damage the raid down below will take, and the safer things will be overall. The other big consideration is that the first tower lieutenant is not all that dangerous, to be honest, for a tank. But the second lieutenant, the sort of hunter NPC that uses shoot very frequently, she does crazy damage with her shoot. So because of this, we found that our tank really had to use his cooldowns and I had to spam him as a healer as well. So if you're tanking the tower, make sure you're aware when you get up there on the top and that lieutenant on the second tower starts to shoot at you, she's going to hit you really hard. So make sure you use your cooldowns if necessary. So for the final phase, just like in normal, you'll want to pull Galakras to the designated position, and assuming your raid is using a triangle set up like we are here, then you just keep her at the front tip of the triangle, and while you're tanking her, face her away from the raid. Now, of course, your raid strategy may dictate that you stack up with the rest of the raid group even while you're tanking her. You'll just have to find out what you're doing. But for the most part, as a tank, you do not need to worry about being targeted by the fireball in this phase, just like normal. So you just stay stacked up if you're not tanking her at the time, and if you are tanking her, then you just keep her facing the other direction. And that is it, really. So that is the Heroic Tank Guide for Galakras. As always, good luck, thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed, please subscribe.